Welcome to the Retirement Evolved podcast with certified financial fiduciary Adam Bruno.
Welcome back, and welcome back to Lauren.
Woo!
Yeah, there we go. We're ready. I know we had a couple guests the last few episodes, but we are back, the original two, and We're ready to go today. This is the Retirement Evolved podcast with Adam and Lauren. Should be with Lauren and Adam, really, because you're the one that makes the magic happen. And we are Evolution Retirement Services and Evolution Wealth Management. And we're coming at you with some of the best retirement advice we can put together. And we want to make sure that you can contact us at taxfreefortmyers.com. You can email us at info@evoretire.com. You can go to our website, evolutionretirementservices.com. There's an S on the end there. And you can also just give us a call, 239-771-8696. But you can do us a really big solid if you can go ahead and like or subscribe to the podcast. And if you want to leave a review, that'd be great for us too. But liking and subscribing lets you know exactly when the next episodes drop, and you'll be able to listen and take notes if you want to, although I don't think we got to that point where
I don't think we
quizzes.
I don't think we're doing quizzes.
I don't think so. But special shout out to Linda. I know you're walking with us today, so she can't take notes. So I missed our physical walk, but we're still on our podcast walk today.
That's
what do you got, Lauren?
All right. So today I kind of want to do something a little bit different, but we're going to dive into something that's on everyone's mind, which is maximizing retirement income. But before we dive into that, I'd like to talk about our upcoming events that we have here at Evolution.
Oh, that's a great idea. I love our events.
So coming up in September, we do always, the Broadway Palm Dinner Theater, where we have a show and a dinner, but most importantly, an educational workshop talking about taxes and retirement for 2024 specifically. And those are great. Those are for first-time attendees only, unfortunately. But we do have two other classes that we do, and these are daytime classes. We do them with the Foundation for Fiduciary Education. It's a deeper dive into taxes. It's a little more high level, but that'll be at the Estero Recreation Center, and that'll be on September 17th and September 24th. So Tuesdays, great events coming up. We are planning on hosting another pickleball event coming up as well. One in October and hopefully one in November. And we're going to try to switch that up and do one during the day, one at night, just to kind of give people, a little more.
Can we play pickleball at night? Do they have lights
time.
Over there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. Well, and when I say at night, I mean like a 6 o'clock,
Well, it'd be really cool if we had like a glow-in-the-dark pickleball.
That would be awesome. I agree. Yeah. Absolutely. So, yeah. Oh, Amber's coming in. Hey,
Hi,
Amber.
You're just taking some pictures of us?
Yeah, Amber's just taking a couple
pictures. Let me get my best pose on here.
All right. So, yeah, we're going to dive right into maximizing retirement income.
Maximizing retirement income. That's good, Lauren, because let me tell you something. You're getting an income. I'm getting income. The whole darn world is getting an income.
Who was that?
It was Al Pacino.
Oh, it was Al Pacino?
Yeah.
I didn't get that reference.
Okay, yeah, whatever.
Okay. So, Adam, income and retirement is such a crucial piece of the puzzle, and there are so many factors to consider. Whether you're already retired or planning to retire soon, today's discussion will give you some tools you need to make the most out of your financial future.
Yeah, income's a big part of that.
Absolutely.
So, and it's a great place to start. So let's talk about the main sources of income. Obviously,
the basics.
The basics. We're going to get back to the basics. Social Security is obviously one form of income that you can rely on and depend on. I know there's a lot of opinions out there about when that ends and when it doesn't end, but for right now, it is a big source of our income. We also have the ability to maybe have a pension, depending on what line of work you were in. That we see that option kind of going away and drifting off into the sunset. Not a lot of people have pensions, but there is, hopefully if you were in a field where you could get a pension, that's a great source of income as well, because normally those pensions are going to increase just like Social Security does. And the average increase for Social Security every year is about 2.5%. Obviously not a straight line. Some years it might be 4, some years it might be 1, some years it might be nothing. Just ask any recent Social Security people who are receiving it. And really the general thought is it just doesn't increase enough. So, but the average is 2.5%. Keep in mind, inflation is 3.27%. So it helps, but it's not really beating it. And of course, the other source of income, and this is predictable income, of course, is when you have to start taking your required minimum distributions at age 73. In 9 years, it'll be 75. But of course, you're taking out about 4% of any of your IRAs, 401ks, any of your tax deferred money. Now, you don't have to take it out, but if you choose not to take it out, you're going to pay a 25% penalty. So that is a sustainable source of income as long as there's still money in your IRAs. So those are the main sources of income that are kind of like predictable. The other sources of income you have also is obviously your investments, your brokerage accounts. You might take out 4 or 5% per year. And then, of course, how long the money lasts is dependent on how well it does in the market. So you also have, your rental properties, things like that. They pay an income stream every month, or real estate holdings, or possibly vacation homes that you, what's that called? Airbnb. You might do that. Yeah. And then you also have annuities. This is, it's a tough world when it comes to the annuities, because there are certain annuity contracts that will pay you a lifetime income, and some people have been taking advantage of that. But the other reality to that is you have no increase in that income. So if you're getting $40,000 a year from an annuity this year, it's going to look a whole heck of a lot different in 10 years when you add in inflation. So that 40,000 might only really be worth like 27,000. So there is that. So there's no, the only predictable income streams we have are Social Securities and pensions. And usually people only have one of those. So
yeah, that's right, Adam. And, when we talk about these income sources, one key principle that at Evolution, we always stress is diversification, and relying too heavily on a single source of income can be pretty risky. For example, if someone is solely dependent on Social Security, any changes in the program could have a significant impact on their financial stability, which is kind of what you were just talking about.
Exactly, Lauren. Diversification isn't just a buzzword, right? It's a strategy. It's a strategy for minimizing your risk across the board. So think of it like this: if you have $1 million of your money with Apple, and you're living, or even Verizon, right? Anything like that. You're living off of the dividend. Well, that's all well and good, but you also have to account for the fact that those accounts can be affected and go down, right? Or some people, they get really good growth in their portfolio, and they say, all right, I made 12% this year. I'm going to take 5% out and spend it. Well, that's great. But what happens if the market is down 12%, right? We're still taking money out because now you've created a lifestyle, and now you're actually reverse dollar cost averaging. So anything that's tied directly to the market, think of the market as one big basket. Now you diversify inside of it. You do different accounts, you do dividends, you do stocks, you do all these different things, right? But the reality is it's still wholly tied to what the market does. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So whether the market goes up or down, you are going to be affected by that. So there are other investments you can make that are going to pay a predictable cash flow to you, where it also preserves the asset itself. So if you have, $240,000, say, in a private lending fund, right now, private lending funds are, somewhere 8 to 10% range that they're paying you, and you're getting quarterly interest. So if it's 10%, you're making 2.5% per quarter, and the $240,000 is preserved. So you've been able to give yourself an extra $2,000 a month with just, $240,000 of your investments. Now, everybody's number is going to be a little bit different, but sprinkling those types of investments in, make sure that you're not dependent wholly on the market for your income. Private lending funds, and we're not talking about private placements or accredited investor funds, because those are just buzzwords for they're not regulated, right? And not regulated means when people lose money, they can say, oh, well, you were an accredited investor. You should have known better than to invest in that. So private lending funds are a little bit different. They're set up with, usually over about 3,400 different loans that are collateralized. So all families do is just ride along with the interest rate that the lenders are receiving on those loans. So that's one example. You can also do institutional level barrier notes, they're called. So, a financial institution creates them, a JP Morgan, a Royal Bank of Canada, large financial institutions. And they might have a 30% barrier on the S&P 500. So as long as the S&P 500 doesn't drop more than 30%, they're going to pay you 6% or 7% on the money. And at the end of the year, you get your money back, and then you find another note. Those are two other ways that kind of diversify yourself away from the market directly. If we're tied just to the S&P 500, we're diversified among 500 different companies, right? So There are strategies you can use without necessarily saying, I'm going to get 12% this year. I need to get 12% so I can spend 8. It doesn't make a lot of sense to do that because we know historically and every day we look at it, the market goes up and down. That's what it does.
So would you say that one of the common misconceptions people have about these income sources, Adam, is Social Security not being enough to cover all their expenses in retirement?
I would say that's actually a critical part of the income puzzle is, you have this idea that, well, I'm getting Social Security. I'm getting $2,400. My wife's getting, $2,600, whatever it might be. So that's $5,000 in Social Security every month. So you feel pretty good about $5,000 until you realize that your lifestyle actually costs you $10,000 a month, right? And that's where the other pieces get added in. Where do I get that extra $5,000 from? So the common misconception is that, I've got Social Security, it'll be fine. Well, most of the families we sit with, Social Security is not enough and it's not necessarily fine, right?
And people are living longer.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you've got 20, 30, or even 40 years of retirement now compared to, people used to retire at 65. They were dead within 3 years, right? So it's just, I don't mean to be crude, but that's the reality. I mean, I think everybody that listens to this has a story of someone in their family doing that. I mean, it's just the reality of the situation.
Absolutely. So, Social Security is a big piece of the retirement income puzzle, but there's a lot of confusion on how to make the most of that. Adam, can you tell me some strategies people can use to maximize their Social Security benefits?
Yeah, one of the strategies that you can use is, let's say that, your wife, her Social Security is, $3,800 a month. Okay. But, the husband looks at his Social Security payment and it's only going to be, $1,200 a month. What actually can happen is, the husband at that point, when Social Security is turned on at full retirement age, the husband can actually claim a spousal benefit or half of his wife's Social Security benefit, and his will continue to grow. And it doesn't affect his wife's money at all. She's still going to get her money, but he'll get up to half of what the wife gets. And then, when he turns 70 and his Social Security amount is still lower than hers, still lower than half of hers, then obviously nothing would happen. He would just keep claiming half of hers. But if he gets the Social Security and now that benefit, his benefit is more than half, then he just turns his on. So that's a strategy to maximize. The other thing to think about is you really have to decide whether Social Security is your only source of income, and it's you're going to have to depend on it. Then you want to try and make it last and kick it out as much as you can. Usually full retirement age, which for most people listening to this are probably somewhere in the 65 to 67 range for that full retirement number. I think we've gone past 65. I think we're at like 66 or 67. But, rather than taking it early, you just turn it on at 66 and you ride off into the sunset. Now, what some people don't realize is, the break even for a lot of these Social Security numbers is somewhere in the 80s. So when you're 80 years old. So if you took a lower amount, you wouldn't actually see the benefit of waiting to take a higher amount till you're in your 80s or mid 80s. So some people say, well, maybe I'll just take the amount now because how much longer than 85 am I going to live? So,
and what's the downside to that?
The downside is if you live till you're 100, you could have had potentially more money, right? $200 a month times 12 months times 10 years. That's another $24,000, I believe, if I did the math right. So, but if you don't have a need of Social Security to supplement your income, my thought is always, if we look at just turning it on the first chance we get, what does that look like? Because if you wait, the drawback to that is if you don't rely on Social Security for your primary income source, the longer you wait, the higher Social Security amount is. And then when you finally do turn it on, does that push you into a state where that Social Security is now 85% taxable instead of 50? Does it make your income jump up enough to where now you're paying double or triple for your Medicare? So those are all things that have to be considered and looked at before you make a Social Security decision. And quite frankly, not looking into it, not doing the research, that could end up costing you $50,000, $100,000, just for making the wrong choice.
And mistakes are costly.
They are costly.
Yeah.
We always talk about that.
And so how would it work if you're during retirement, if you're working, could that affect your Social Security benefits? Yeah,
it could. So if you're working and you're making the most money that you've ever made in the last 7 or 8 years of your career, right? Some people elect not to retire earlier to maximize their Social Security payout, because those years are counting towards their maximum Social Security withdrawal amount. So some people want to wait just because they're going to pack in 5 or 6 years of this super high income that's going to be used towards their Social Security calculation. Some people wait just because they don't want to walk away. If they like what they're doing, they have a passion for it. There's no law written that says you have to retire. You and I talk about this all the time. The only thing that's going to get me out of this chair is if I get to spend a little bit more time with my wife and travel and see things. That's the only reason I would, because that will keep me busy and keep me active. If I had to sit at home for days at a time, I'd probably
you'd lose it.
Yeah. Well, that's to say the least.
Well, let's shift gears here a little bit, if that's okay with you.
Sure, as long as you don't strip any gears.
I was going to say, I mean, I think we beat Social Security to death. So,
well, that was your fault. You asked about it.
I know. Let's shift gears and talk about investment strategies for generating income. What are some investment options retirees can consider?
Well, we already talked a little bit about private lending funds, barrier notes. Obviously, another investment option is, purchasing an annuity and receiving a lifetime income from it. But again, the drawback to that is in most cases, your income from an annuity is not going to increase. It's going to stay the same. However, there are ways that you can, what we call ladder some of those annuity benefits. So your income is a certain amount right now, right? Say you're making $40,000, but you've got another potential for $20,000 or $30,000 in another annuity, and you just wait to turn it on until it's opportune. So you can stagger them or ladder them so your overall amount goes up. I think that's the best strategy when you're considering an income annuity. There are also certain income annuities that will start you out at a little bit of a lower amount that they pay you every month, but it also increases over time. So you're not going to make a big jump right at first, but you'll continue. The longer you live, the more it increases and the better you'll do. But obviously nobody knows when they're going to die. So that makes it a little bit harder. Sure. The other income generating, of course, is, you find some really good dividend exchange traded funds. Those usually right now are paying somewhere between 4 to 5%. Heck, you can give yourself a 5% cash flow just from having money in a money market right now. So there are options that you have to generate income. The primary reason you want to generate income, though, should be to preserve the asset that you're drawing the income from. When we get into this thought process of preserving rather than growing, you're running less of a risk of the investment itself going down, and then you're still taking money out of it. So I think, from an income perspective, there's many different sources you can use. It just has to be the correct strategy, and it has to be with someone that has the right knowledge to identify what your specific income needs are, rather than just saying, hey, I'll give you a 10% cash flow, right? It doesn't make any sense if families don't know what they want to spend the money on or what their lifestyle costs.
Sure. We talk about that all the time. The lifestyle is the biggest thing. We talk about goals, but what really are your lifestyle goals? I think that's even more.
Yes.
Did you have an itch?
No, yeah, sorry.
Okay.
My beard.
But, anyways, those are all great options. I've heard bonds are another common choice, like with fixed interest payments. They can balance the portfolio. But, we always talk about bonds, and when interest rates go up, bond performance goes down. And
that's the thing. And Kurt and I preached from the mountaintops trying to get people to realize this years ago. Interest rates were at an incredibly low environment. And the first thing that's going to happen when they go up is your safety or your bonds that you're investing in to be safe are going to start underperforming and actually losing money. And, not a lot of people wanted to listen. We did reach a few families, and it was still absurd that you had most financial firms saying, okay, let's take 60% risk with this money and let's put the other 40% in bonds so it's safe. Well, as it always does, something happened in history over the last few years where we saw the market going down, and guess what else was going down? Bonds. So, bonds and your investments in bonds are going to depend on the interest rate environment. And right now, there's no reason to have any faith in bonds with the interest rate environment the way it is being so high.
Yeah, correct. Speaking of something like that you think is safe, let's talk a little bit about risk management. How should retirees approach risk management? I
think the best way is to have quantifiable data. That's what I said, data. Have quantifiable data so that we can actually know what somebody's risk really is, and we can quantify that, right? And the way that we do it with our families is they answer about 10 to 15 questions, and we have a program called Riskalyze that assigns them a speed limit for how they feel about risk from 0 to 100 miles an hour. If they're 40 miles an hour, we know that they're more a conservative to moderate risk. But having that quantifiable data helps you see what your risk level is. So when you're looking at investments and you can assign a speed limit to them, if you're looking at an investment that's 75 miles an hour and you're a 40 mile an hour risk tolerance, that entire investment is probably not for you. Now, if you like something in that investment, maybe 10% of your money goes there. 10% is a good rule. Not having 10% in any single investments. Now, with funds, with ETFs, they're spreading your money off over multiple investments that hold multiple companies. So that's okay. But not having 10% in anything more, like if you have Apple, right? You try not to have more than 10% in Apple itself because you want to diversify. And that's another good thought there. I mean, how do we make it so that we have the correct investments while we're trying to talk about income preservation? So definitely that kind of thought is helpful.
And would you recommend at least once a year to kind of review that portfolio and have it rebalanced?
Actually, at least once a year it's not even so much about the rebalancing. It's making sure that your families that you serve still feel the same way about risk. If they have a pretty good year and they say, you know what, this was a pretty good year, the plan came together nice, what if we take a little bit more risk next year? Well, if they're feeling that way, then right back to the 10 to 15 questions and see where their speed limit is. Because the last thing you want to do is say, yeah, you know what, that sounds good. Let's put another 20% here where it's super risky, right? You can't quantify that until you know what that data says about what their speed limit is. So many people skip this. A lot of firms say that they have a way to test your risk tolerance, but the reality is it's not a quantifiable data point where you could say, yeah, 40 miles an hour. Okay. We have all of our investments broken down by speed limit. So if we know somebody comes in and they're a 70 mile an hour, awesome. Here's all the things that go between 70 and 80 miles an hour. Do we want all of our eggs in that speed limit basket? Probably not. So you would say if they're 75 miles an hour, they probably want to have, 25% of the money safe at least.
Right.
So they don't have to touch, the money that's still growing. So it's all about balance.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Annuities, we talked about earlier, annuities are another tool that some retirees consider for generating income. What's your take on using the annuities, Adam? And also, what specific types of annuities tend to work best for most retirees?
When we talk about income, fixed index annuities are probably a little bit better because it's very hard to lose principal.
So they're safer.
Yeah, they might not grow that much, but the reason why that becomes important is essentially with an annuity, you're spending down your own money, right? So it might take you 30 or 40 years to get to the point where you've spent down all your money. But if something happens to you, God forbid, at least there's a chunk of money left to leave to the beneficiaries. So if you're in kind of like a variable annuity, that's gonna go up and down with the market. Now, yes, they're guaranteeing your income stream, but if something happens to you within 6 years and your money is down $100,000, that doesn't feel too good for your family if you're leaving them that money.
Yeah, absolutely not. That makes sense.
The best way to utilize it is to look at, at a minimum, and this is a perfect way to say it. If my Social Security is $5,000 and I want to spend $10,000 a month, you don't necessarily need to generate the other $5,000 from an annuity. You can generate another $2,500 a month. And now you don't feel so bad about relying on the rest of your investments to generate some money for you. The 5% is a great rule there. I mean, 5% conservatively is what you should expect. Very conservatively is what you should expect investments to pay you. So if you've already got 3/4 of your income covered, it shouldn't be too hard for you to draw the other income you need from, the market, from your market investments. Mm-hmm. Plus, I mean, when you really think about it, if you needed to, you could probably live on $2,500 less a month just for a year while the market recovers. So I just don't believe in a lot of these people and these firms telling you, just take everything you need for your expenses and use an annuity to generate that income. Once again, you use the annuity, it's only going to be good for 5 or 10 years before now you're going to have to dip into more money because inflation caught up with us. So I don't believe in that. I do believe that if they're structured properly and you use them correctly and you do the right thing for the client, because that's our first internal policy, right? Do the right thing.
Yes.
So, the right thing is not saying you have $1 million. Okay, put 500,000 of it in an annuity so it's safe and you can generate income. It doesn't mean anything if you don't know what you want to do with the income. So the other annuities that I really like multi-year guaranteed annuities. Because right now, for 3 years, the insurance company will guarantee you growth in the 5% range. They guarantee it for 3 years, right? If you wanted to get that in a CD, you'd have to sign up just for 6 months to a year. And there's no guarantee that when you're doing it again, that you'll be able to get 5%. So this is a really good tool to giving yourself a little bit longer and knowing that you're going to make 5%. Now, the reason multi-year guaranteed annuities are not talked about that much is because they don't pay a very high commission. Usually they pay about a 1% commission. So nobody's inclined to sell them, right? You hear about them the most inside the banking world. You know, banks don't care about commission. But then again, they might only have access to 1 or 2 companies that offer a MYGA, and they might not be getting the best rates. So that's something everybody should look into, especially if we start to see decreases in interest rates, because once the interest rates start to decrease, your ability to get 5% is going to start to go away as well. So that's something everybody should look into.
No, that makes sense. I mean, I guess annuities, we can say, can be a great fit for people looking for a guaranteed income stream.
Or safety.
But they do require careful consideration.
They do. And you know, when somebody's trying to make 7 or 8% commission off of that, they're not going to be as forthcoming probably as they should be. You know, that's the problem.
That's just, I don't even want to get into that.
Well, we do use annuities, right? We use annuities here.
We do.
The problem is that it needs to be explained to the bad and the good need to be explained so that people can make an educated decision.
Yes.
And people don't like to do that when they're selling something. It's like, this is great. Look at this, power windows. And nobody knows that there's only power windows in the front seat, not the back, right? So that's the whole thought there. Not that I can think of a car that does that, but
I have roll down windows, so I mean I can't even go there.
Oh, that's why your arms are looking so buff these days.
That's why. Okay. All right, so let's turn to some of the questions we received from our listeners. Our first question: how do I know when to take Social Security benefits, and what's your advice, Adam?
My advice is to just do you can do a Social Security analyzer. There's a lot of programs on the internet that allow you to kind of map it out, give the program your situation, and they will allow you to then see, well, if I take it now, this is my maximum lifetime benefit if I die at this age, right? And that's a good place for you to see what the break-even points are. You might see that, yeah, it's $200 more right now, but I don't break even until I'm in my 80s anyway, so that's a good way to do it. We have programs here at the office that if you have your numbers, we're more than happy to run them for you. Remember, though, a lot of those programs do not consider your total asset level. They just are looking at Social Security and Social Security alone. But if you look at your assets combined with Social Security, you might want to pick up a different strategy just because of how many assets you have as well. So it's a loaded question, but I would say talk to somebody who's a professional with this. If you need to do it on your own, there's definitely programs online that you can use to generate the reports, but just be careful. Sure.
Yeah. And also, I think that your health is a big part of that too. If you're in good health, would you recommend waiting to take it?
You know, I don't know that I would recommend waiting to take it. I think health plays a big factor in it, but there's other things that play the factor as well. Like, do you really need it to live your lifestyle?
Right.
You know, so if anything, if you're in good health, you know, and you take it at 66 and you would have made an extra $400 a month if you waited till 70, is that really going to matter to you when you're 88 years old and saying, oh, I should have taken, I mean, it's not really normally what happens, right?
Yeah.
Timing this is the best thing. And if you can tell us exactly when you're going to die, we can tell you the best time to take Social Security,
right.
But nobody can do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Our next question, is it better to pay off my mortgage before retiring or keep the cash invested?
Here we go. Okay. Here's my unpopular opinion on this. If your mortgage is 2.75%, and you owe $300,000 on it still. You owe $100,000 on it still. And you've got an $800,000 portfolio. Do you really want to take $100,000 out of that portfolio to pay the mortgage so that you're not paying 2.75% interest anymore? And you get that warm, fuzzy feeling because your mortgage is completely paid off.
Peace of mind.
Whereas that $100,000 might have grown over that last 5 years of the mortgage, might have grown at 7% compounded. Which way did you end up with more money? Not paying the mortgage. That's a great point. But if your interest rate is 5 or 6%, then yeah, I could see that. That's too close, right? If it's 5 or 6%, yeah, pay that sucker off. Be done with it. But if we're talking about 2.75% or 3%, the chances are you're going to do better than that investing. So you're taking $100,000 away from what you could have invested to pay a mortgage off that has an extremely low interest rate that really wasn't costing you that much anyway, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, like you said, it's a personal decision.
Make extra payments.
And, based on your financial goals and your comfort level with debt.
Let's say you made $7,000 on that $100,000 investment that year. Take an extra $3,500 and pay the mortgage down.
Right.
I mean, it's not rocket science when it comes to that, but it takes an extra amount of thought to say, because we're taught, so especially the boomer generation, right? They're taught, don't have any debt, pay off your mortgage.
I was going to say, my mom, she's like, oh, I'd love to have, the house paid off, the car paid off, everything, just all set. And that way I know exactly what and I say to her all the time, like, is that really going to change anything for you?
Yeah, that's the thing. What it does is it gives you that nice, warm and fuzzy feeling, right? Like you don't know anybody, the worst case scenario. We like to deal with, the baby boomer generation has been through so much, right? So they're constantly looking for that shoe to drop, that hammer to come down. So the thought that you have cars paid off and houses paid off, it makes you feel good because you don't ever have to worry about having a place to live.
Right.
I mean, it's just, I get it. My unpopular opinion though is I would much rather let the money work for you, take some of that money, make extra payments, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, Adam. Key takeaways for our listeners. It's essential to diversify your income sources in retirement.
Sure.
Okay.
And explore those income
and explore
sources.
them. Yeah, sure. Don't rely solely on Social Security.
I think we could sum up everything today by the importance of having a plan and having a team that can answer those questions for you, because your neighbor's probably not going to be able to answer them that well. And think about it. If you had a broken bone, you limp over to your neighbors and they're going to be able to set it for you, maybe splint it for you. Maybe they have a little bit of medical training, but they're not going to be able to fix the broken bone. They can hold off the pain. They can stabilize it, but they're not going to be able to fix it. And it's the same thing when you talk about retirement. There are so many, I won't even say broken bones. There's so many sprains, right? That you just need to have the right attention to everything.
Pain points.
Pain points. Yeah. Pain points.
So stay informed and be proactive. I think
proactive.
That's the best advice.
Listen to the podcast.
Yeah.
We got your back.
We got you guys. Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody. We really hope that you found this episode helpful and that you're walking away, no pun intended, Linda, with some valuable insights on how to maximize your retirement income. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast. Leave us a review. Share it with somebody that could benefit from listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I'm supposed to go play pickleball today, and Valerie told me that she was doing something else. Otherwise, she would totally go. So, Valerie, I'm really disappointed. I thought we had something special.
Val.
That's
your second mama.
I know. She is. She's great. But, second mama didn't want to come out and play pickleball today. So that's all right.
Well, we'll miss her.
Well, thank you, everybody. Just like Lauren said, we won't keep you any longer, but we do want to let you know, be safe out there. God bless. Treat each other the way you want to be treated. We're coming up on that crazy, crazy time of year, the election. So stay safe out there. Keep your head down.
God bless.
God bless. Take care. Bye-bye.
Investment advisory services are offered through Evolution Wealth Management Incorporated, an investment advisor registered with the state of Florida. Registration does not imply any level of skill or training. Evolution Wealth Management's unique CRD number is 307644. You can obtain a copy of Evolution Wealth Management's firm brochure, Form ADV Part 2A, free of charge by visiting advisorinfo.sec.gov. Evolution Wealth Management offers investment advisory services only, where it is appropriately registered or exempt from registration, and only after clients have entered into an investment advisory agreement confirming the terms of engagement and have been provided a copy of the firm's ADV Part 2A. Insurance services are provided by Evolution Retirement Services. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to restrictions, limitations, or early withdrawal fees, which vary by the issuer. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. You should consider the charges, risks, expense, and investment objectives carefully before entering a contract. This material has been prepared for informational purposes only and should not be construed as a solicitation to affect or attempt to affect either transactions in securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice. This material is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for tax, legal, accounting, or other financial advice. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own tax, legal, and accounting advisors before engaging in any transaction. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services are affiliated entities.